Greetings and all praising the King on this glorious day, the Sabbath, as we cut the book onto chapter 11 of Matthew. We have found the Christ departing from the disciples to go to their cities to preach as the Christ did. And as he is approached by some of John the Baptist followers who asked the Christ, "Are you the one, or shall we wait for another?" This coming after the Christ had been baptized by John in chapter 3 of this book, even as John had asked the Christ, "Why shall I baptize you? Am I not in need for you to cleanse me?" And even as the Christ is baptized and the heavens opened and a voice entered saying, "This is my beloved Son," John has sent his followers from prison in chapter 11 to ask, "Are you the one?" Now John is condemned by man to death for his outward position against the ruler Herod, sleeping with his brother's wife. And as the Christ replies, "Go and tell John what you see, that the deaf hear, that the lame walk, that the lepers are cleansed, that the blind see, the dead are raised, the poor is given the word," that hope. So even as John may have known who he was dealing with, he was unable to be able to speak of this truth in prison. So his disciples were to carry the word. Now the Christ is approached by the multitude, and the Christ declares, and the even more than a prophet, John the Baptist, saying that this was the one that was proclaimed to come from the book of Malachi as Elijah, to prepare ye the way. And then he speaks, saying, "What did you go into the wilderness to see? A reed shaken in the wind? No. A man dressed in soft raiment. For John the Baptist was known to wear camel's hair, and eat the locusts and honey, considered a wild man. And therefore, the Christ had glorified John the Baptist, and even saying that he was the greatest, and yet he said that even he would be least in the kingdom. You see, because John the Baptist had been revered amongst the people. Yeah, he was known as a holy man, righteous. Even when the Pharisees asked the Christ, who was the Christ, and the Christ replied, "Who was John the Baptist? Was John the Baptist a man of God, or was he essentially a fake?" So the Pharisees would say that he was not a man of God, because then that would take their power from them. but yet they feared the people as they do today, the population. And therefore, they was stumped. And so the Christ is showing the people that even this man that was not clothed in this fine linen and the outward garment of appearance that the pharaohs had taken, yet he was righteous even more so. Yeah, because the Pharisees were a product of the Roman rule. Yeah, they were being governed as proxies through the Roman establishment. And the rival of the Christ being Caesar. And in this verse, the Christ says that the kingdom has been taken by violence, and that even the law had been abused, and that those men had presented themselves as lawful when they had not been the rightful rulers, and that John the Baptist was the correct, righteous one to rule over the people. You know, even though we think of John the Baptist as a natural man and he was living in the wilderness, John the Baptist had so many followers, even to this day. So for John the Baptist to be as powerful as he was, even though he didn't take that earthly power to glorify himself, his power was through humility. And even though John the Baptist had more followers than any of those rulers, those lands. So they sought to do away with John the Baptist. And John the Baptist gave his power to the Christ. Now the Christ has gone into the cities to upbraid those cities. And in this, the Christ has raised his voice unto those people, saying, "Woe unto you, Capernaum," a place that he had made his headquarters, and making reference unto Lucifer, as the city had been exalted, even Babylon, as the tower, and been cast down. Yeah. And saying that these infamous cities like Tyre and Sidon had more hope than even those cities that he had come into. So for people that would think that the Christ just remained silent and just went about his business and shook people's hands and waved at people, this was not so. The Christ was hated by the people in those gates. Come, all ye that are heavy burdened and need of rest. Come and drink from the blood. The blood of the Christ.